Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're doing something a little different. We are stepping right into a mythological epic. This is essentially a cautionary fable about societal stagnation and that really painful, absolutely necessary process of personal awakening. And for our time together, I'm going to be adopting the mantle of the Red Spectre, the catalyst of this whole tale. So I want you to imagine me descending from the heights to be your guide through the architecture of your own soul. We're going to explore the profound internal conflicts that govern our lives, and more importantly, how we might actually break free from them. Listen to this truth, and I'm delivering this hook directly to you. You are living in a pressurized tomb. I am here to break the stone. The goal here is to shatter that collective slumber that society just kind of lulls us into. Because the stakes of this fable, they are incredibly high. It is literally a matter of spiritual life and death. We so often trade our vitality for this manicured illusion of safety, and we end up suffocating our true nature in the process. My purpose today, as the Red Spectre, is to bring the blade that cuts right through that illusion. Okay, let's dive into this. Act 1, the paved merchant city. Now, I want you to imagine a vast civilization just living in this collective slumber. Their lives are measured by nothing but the endless scratching of quills on ledgers. Today, we'd probably call this the exhaustion of endless spreadsheets and hustle culture, but here they maintain this manicured order using what we call the gray stone of reason. And to be clear, this isn't true enlightened rationality. It represents the oppressive, rigid logic society uses to pave over the messy, chaotic reality of nature. The citizens of this city, they traded their vibrant, unpredictable internal energy for a predictable, hollow safety. So the gray stone suffocates the vital energy of the earth beneath it, exactly the same way societal expectations suffocate the wildness of the human spirit. But, because that natural internal flame can't ever truly be extinguished, it has to be hidden, right? Enter the porcelain masks. These masks are fragile facades worn by the citizens to conceal the terrifying fact that their souls have become pressurized tombs of suppressed fear. In the merchant city, a smile is just a currency. It isn't real. The mask is just covering up a deep intellectual poverty, preventing any kind of honest expression, because the truth would just be too painful a reminder of what they've actually lost. Think of those fake transactional smiles we all use daily just to get by. Yeah, that is the porcelain mask at work. But a pressurized tomb cannot hold forever. Act 2, shattering the porcelain mask. So, this is the moment of my descent. I didn't come to the merchant city to offer them more gold or comfortable lies. I came to cut through their suffocating, fragile peace like a blade. As I moved through their marketplaces, I left a crimson wake. Those ledgers, the very measure of their commodified lives, literally turned to ash. The gray stone of reason began to crack under my feet. I didn't bring comfort. I brought the friction of reality, forcefully waking these citizens from their collective slumber to expose their so-called civilization for what it truly was. A state of complete, fatal stagnation. And right in the middle of this chaos, one specific merchant saw his porcelain mask shatter completely in my wake. Stripped of his disguise, he suddenly felt the terrifying, raw weight of his own suppressed internal heat. I leaned in and whispered the actual truth to him. His spirit was fundamentally, unshakably priceless. It was a powerful force that could never, ever be commodified or weighed on the city's ledgers. See, the merchant had been caught in what we'll call the utility trap, basically believing he only had value if he was productive for the market. To break free from that, he had to embrace profound purposelessness. He began to create and act for the sheer sake of the flame itself, not for profit or utility. And in doing so, he transitioned from living in a pressurized tomb of fear into a real vessel of active, sovereign expression. Now, let's shift our fable to another figure. Act 3, the knight's false fire. Consider this celebrated knight. He was revered and highly respected by his people, but beneath his armor, he had pruned his spirit into a perfect cube just to fit the rigid expectations of the herd. He was completely ensnared in the trap of vanity. See, he had this raging internal heat, this unscripted animal force in his blood. But instead of understanding it, he dressed it up in the robes of a noble cause. He falsely claimed that his violent outbursts were holy light and his tremors were divine justice. He built his entire life on that exact same gray stone of reason, using morality to basically soothe his own conscience and hide his chaotic nature. But here's the thing about the gray stone. It absolutely cannot sustain life when adversity strikes.
And so the inevitable drought arrived. Because the kingdom's gardens were shallow and uniform, paved over by all that logic, they just withered and died. They had zero depth to reach the vital water below. And when the drought hit the night, all his noble justifications completely failed him. Without deep roots, his unmanaged internal heat became a destructive wrecking ball, threatening to consume him. Turns out, a perfectly pruned spirit makes for terrible kindling.
Act 4. Forging the Stone Hearth. The knight was totally collapsing under his own unmanaged fire, so I appeared before him, wielding the mirror of polished obsidian, and I stripped away his illusions, and that mask of righteous vanity. I forced him to practice brutal intellectual honesty, and this brilliantly illustrates the turning point, because I commanded him, name the force. He had to acknowledge that his internal heat wasn't some grand moral failing, and it definitely wasn't a holy divine gift. It was simply a biological necessity. It was the raw fuel of life itself.
So, to actually survive the drought, I gave him the precise steps to build a stone hearth right at the center of his soul. Step 1. He had to deepen his roots into the dark, ancient soil, reaching way down to the atavistic past, resting far below society's iron plates of logic. Step 2. He had to completely stop reacting blindly to the internal pressure. And step 3. He had to intentionally direct that heat into a creative forge. By doing this, he established true atavistic resilience.
Act 5. 2 Awakened Souls. Let's theatrically summon our 2 transformed figures right into the void to reflect on the painful but glorious shedding of their porcelain masks. The merchant steps forward, his voice steady and sovereign. He tells us, I escaped the scales. I now create in profound purposelessness, protecting my internal energy from the market's commodification. He realized that establishing sovereignty over utility was literally the only way to live. He completely refused to let the merchant city, or anyone else for that matter, set the value of his soul.
And the knight nods. The false piety is totally gone from his eyes, replaced by this grounded, smoldering calm. He replies, and I stopped pruning my spirit. I rooted into ancient soil to turn a wrecking ball into a creative forge. The knight learned that harnessing his biological necessity, rather than just hiding it behind noble lies, was the only way to survive the inevitable droughts of existence.
This brings our epic to its climax. Act 6. Architects of the Flame.
So, the crucial point here, the overarching lesson of this entire fable, is about breaking free from the gray stone of reason and those fragile porcelain masks we all end up wearing. Compare how these 2 men actually resolved their conflicts. The merchant was stuck in the utility trap, right? But he used profound purposelessness to become a vessel of sovereign expression. The knight was stuck in the trap of vanity. He used brutal intellectual honesty and the forge to become the architect of his internal frame. They both achieved profound internal sovereignty, they just got there through different methods.
And so, as the Red Spectre, my time guiding you is drawing to a close. But I leave you with this final, haunting provocation. Look at your own life, look at your own masks, and that unscripted energy inside you. I'm asking you directly, are you tending a hearth, or are you living in a pressurized tomb? The choice to break the stone is entirely yours.